Good afternoon. This is your Tropical Atlantic Marine Weather Briefing for Sunday, February 16th. It's valid for the next 5 days through Friday, February 21st. I'm Jeff Lewitsky, a lead forecaster at the Tropical Analysis and Forecast Branch at the National Hurricane Center. First, let's take a look at the summary for the next 5 days. We're highlighting here a gale warning in the Gulf of America tonight in the southwest Gulf there. And we also have gale conditions possible later this week, midweek, in the west central and southwest Gulf of America Wednesday and Wednesday night. For swells, we do have a significant swell event right now of 12 to 23 feet in the Atlantic Ocean. Here's the surface analysis from this morning. We have a cold front in the Gulf of America stretching from the western Florida Panhandle back into northeastern Mexico, south of the Texas coast, with fresh to strong winds behind it, and ahead of it in the southwest Gulf is where we have the developing gale warning, which will be in effect by this afternoon. In the Caribbean, pretty quiet there, no significant features of note. In the Atlantic, there's an old cold front stretching from near the Azores across central portions, which will eventually dissipate and diminish in the next day or so. Here's the 24-hour forecast for winds and waves. This is valid Monday morning. The cold front by then has managed to exit most of the Gulf, now extending from near the Florida Keys to just north or near the Yucatan Channel. By this time, the gale conditions offshore and the gale warning offshore of Veracruz, Mexico, should have diminished to fresh to strong northwesterly winds right along the coast there. Otherwise, moderate to fresh winds across the rest of the Gulf Basin. We could have some seas right around 12 feet, though, still lingering Monday morning off of Veracruz. In the Caribbean Sea, we have fresh to strong trades in the south central portions, and mainly moderate to fresh elsewhere, except gentle to moderate in the northwestern Caribbean there. In the Atlantic, behind that front, we have some seas building in here up to around 10 feet and some fresh to strong winds on either side of the front, right around 31 north. Otherwise, high pressure dominates. However, we do have that significant swell area in the northeast corner of the high seas waters. The 48-hour forecast for Tuesday morning. Winds in the Gulf are now east to southeast. Their return flow as high pressure is centered near the Tennessee Valley or so, and mainly moderate winds dominating the basin. Seas have also subsided by this point to about 4 or 5 feet or less. In the Caribbean, no big changes, fresh to strong winds off of northern Colombia. In the Atlantic, the front is now weakening as it enters the central Atlantic with mainly gentle to moderate winds. We have some fresh trades across the typical southern portions of the open waters here, and still some lingering large swell in the northeastern corner of the high seas. Here's the 72-hour forecast for Wednesday morning. The next cold front's moving into the Gulf with an associated area of low pressure. Already have some fresh to strong winds off the Texas and southwest Louisiana coasts, and some seas will begin to build behind the front as well. No big changes in the Caribbean. In the Atlantic, that old front is still hanging around, but should continue to dissipate and weaken with no big changes in winds and seas. Except for that significant swell area has now subsided with a new significant swell area dropping south of 31 in the central waters. Here's the 96-hour forecast valid Thursday morning. The cold front by this point should be stretching from the southwest North Atlantic to near South Florida and then back towards the southwest and central Gulf. We could have gale conditions possible into early Thursday morning, mainly Wednesday and Wednesday night, off of the coast of Mexico here, mainly Veracruz, and mainly moderate to fresh winds elsewhere in the Gulf. Some seas up to around at least 12 feet near that gale condition possible area off Veracruz. Little change in the Caribbean still, and we could have some fresh to strong winds on either side of the front in the Atlantic, with that significant swell, the new significant swell moving into the northeastern corner with seas well over 12 feet, near 20 feet. Lastly, for Friday morning, the cold front continues to make progress now into the central Atlantic, and perhaps the western portion has stalled out here over the southwest Gulf. Winds by this point Friday morning should have diminished offshore Veracruz, but we could have some lingering fresh to strong in the northwest Gulf of America there due to a tight pressure gradient. Little change still in the Caribbean, pretty much the same conditions there all week, except maybe some stronger winds in the northwestern Caribbean as that front moves by to the northeast. Still some fresh to strong winds either side of the front, and some new swell of greater than 12 feet pushing south-southeast of Bermuda, and some lingering 12-foot seas or greater in the northeast corner. So in summary, we have a gale warning in the Gulf of America tonight, and gale conditions possible in the west central and southwest Gulf of America Wednesday and Wednesday night. Swell, we have a significant swell event now in the Atlantic Ocean of 12 to 23 feet, and we could have some additional swell events later this week. This has been your Tropical Atlantic Marine Weather Briefing. The next briefing will be issued by 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Thursday, February 20th. Remember, you can always get the latest forecast information at hurricanes.gov/marine.